Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shamanic Learning. My name is Eleni,
And I'm Tina.
and we are going to talk all about energetic cords and some of the ways that we personally deal with energetic cords as practitioners, but also in our own ritual practices. And I would say that energetic cords can be connected to people, places, things, and
Situations.
situations. Yeah. So, do you have anything you want to share about that, Tina?
Um, yeah, I mean, I personally have experienced chords to all of those things. Um, I do recall like the first time when I learned about cord cutting, it was, cords are to people. That's kind of how it was presented to us, or at least how I absorbed that information until I
Hmm.
had clients on the table and I was like, this isn't to a person. This is like to a dog, or this is to a place that you lived when you were a child, or those kinds of things. So I have it through practice, um, definitely identified. We are all energy, right? Everything is energy. So theoretically, you can have a cord to absolutely any other energetic situation. What
Hmm.
so I can have a cord to the sofa I'm sitting on, right? You know, a ring that my mother gave me. I we have cord, but with that said, we have standard cords, right? We have cords from our birth, right?
Hmm.
A literal cord held us to our mother, right? So that is our once that's cut, we've got this energetic umbilical cord, and you have cords to your siblings and your parents, and your friends and your pets and your home. Those are like standard kind of
Hmm.
situations, but you can also have a cord from a car accident
Hmm.
or a surgery or anything. I mean, so I think it's easier to think of chords in a less um, canned kind of way, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So,
Yes. Yeah, I think the importance of cords is that, you know, not all cords are toxic. I think in the energetic realms, and especially if you go and get energetic work done, mostly a lot of it is focused on like clearing either toxic cords or old, like stagnant cords. But the thing is that there can be really healthy cords as well. And, because we all are connected energetically, it's good to just have like a cleanup, like you can clean up cords. And let's say you cut like a certain cord with a family member, but you still have a relationship with them. That what that can do is kind of like clear up the space for a healthier relationship with them, or a different like cord to be established. I think when I think of like having cords to all these things, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm just like, but I think if we can think of it as like there's ways to have really healthy cords, or connections is another way to think of that.
yeah, I mean, it's really an energy exchange, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So you and I have a cord. Okay,
Hmm.
we probably have multiple cords because of the nature of our relationship and our work, right?
Yes.
Um, I'm going to say those are positive for
Yeah.
me, right? But at some point in my world, maybe one of those cords from something that we experienced together becomes less beneficial, let's say that, or non beneficial. Then I may want to cut that cord. It doesn't cut my tie to you, it
Right.
cuts that particular energy exchange.
Hmm.
So yeah, so like you said, so we can make space for a new, more positive energy to connect to.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
think
think
that's
of
important.
Yes. And I think a really good context would be like an ex-partner, right? It's like at one
Yeah.
point you were really connected to them. And if you were like in a romantic relationship with them, like your sacral chakra probably has some cords with that person. And once if that relationship is over and it's time to like you're ready to move on, like clearing up some of those cords can be helpful because you're releasing that energy that's connected to that person. And it could be connected to that person, or it could be connected to your way of relating to them, or like a thought form around what the relationship should have been, or a certain memory. Like it's not always directly connected to that
Yeah.
person. It can be connected to an experience or something that you feel like you didn't get, so it's like connected to this feeling like a need that wasn't met, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah, clearing up those cords. I think it's interesting to think about like items too. And sometimes I think about items as like little portals. And I know like that's sometimes a trigger word for people too, because people have had really negative experiences with having portals, right? But if you think about inherited items, and this is a hot topic for me right now because I have all these inherited goods that I've gotten from my grandparents, and I'm starting to decorate my space and integrate them into my life. And they are connected to my grandparents, right? So like they are energetically connected, but also they're like little mementos that keep me connected in a healthy way as long as the energy stays clear. And I have had to do a lot of clearing on those. Um, so let's talk about like when you're like doing your own releasing of energies and you want to like cleanse your auric field. What would you say is really important for somebody that's doing like a ritual practice like that on their own?
I think the first, what you just said is going to be important. It needs to be in a ritual space.
Right.
Have sacred space open, be in a protected environment. That's important with any work that we do is to be
Hmm.
in sacred space. And whatever that looks like to you as a being, you don't have to do it my way. Um, and if all right, I'm going to try to demonstrate this. Okay, so here's the cord, right? When we cut this cord, so this is me, this is the person I'm cutting from, right? We cut this cord. Where does the energy go? Right? So we need to cut our cord with an intention.
Hmm.
If you're cutting cords without a practitioner, you need to make sure that you're setting the intention for this energy to go back to you and this energy to go back where it belongs or to be taken to be transmuted by somebody else if that person is gone or that situation is gone, whatever. There needs to be an intention for moving that energy to the appropriate place. I have been to sessions, group sessions, where we did these like mass cord cuttings, and the practitioner didn't specifically say that. And I felt everybody else's energy cords like all over me, and it feels yucky.
Mm.
Um, so my recommendation is make sure that when you're cutting your own generic cords, right? You're like doing a general cleansing, make sure that energy is going somewhere. Um,
Hmm.
and I think the other important thing, at least from a shamanic perspective, is to also fill the hole, right?
Hmm.
So again, this cord has been coming out of your body. This is now my body. This is my cord, and we cut it. Okay. So now there's this empty space that we need to fill. Usually, from when we're doing it, we fill it with our wear kocha, with loving light, something to that effect. So if you're doing it on yourself, again, the intention to fill that space with your own personal loving light or source energy or however that looks for you. Um, because we want to make sure that it's filled with positive, loving energy so that it can be then utilized as cord energy for a positive situation, right? So um, that felt like a lot.
Yeah, I think no, that made perfect sense. And I think if you think about, yeah, like when you're moving something out of like a space, or we've all, I think, heard that saying like, what is that saying about like something abhors a vacuum? Like I know they say clutter does that. Like if there's an empty space, people will find a way to fill it.
Right. You're going to find a way to fill it.
And
Exactly. So fill
so
it.
with your auric field, and I want to talk about what can an energy cord look like as from a practitioner, like working on a client. I'm sure we've both seen cords look so many different ways. they can
Absolutely.
be tree trunk branches that are just like reaching in and their roots are tied around like somebody's like chakra center or some type of like crystallized energy in there. I've seen it look like tubes, probably pipes, like all different types of things, which kind of informs like what is that exchange, you
Hmm.
know? Or maybe sometimes it just really easily comes off like a dead branch, like it was just barely hanging on, right? Um,
Oh yeah, I've seen it look like barbed wire
yeah.
or like a necklace chain.
Hmm.
That was a really interesting one because it was like this entwined, like double strand. So yeah, they take a little doing to,
Hmm.
clear, but they definitely inform. I think you're right that,
Yeah, they inform and also they inform our other exchanges with people, I think, because it's sort of like as long as that cord is still like filtering back and forth, I think that can like inform our auric field and then therefore inform like the relationships or projections we have outwardly. So somebody might come in for a session and be like, I'm having a problem with this person, right? And then as we're tracking, it's like, oh, well, this is actually the root and the wound of this is either like a past life cord where something happened, or this is actually to like your dad and like a father wound, you know? So sometimes that's a blind spot for people. Even like when I receive like work, I feel like like I had no idea that that was where it was
right.
coming from, you know? So chords can definitely surprise you, but I want to like paint a picture of like, okay, here's your auric field, and you know, there's so many things I could say about that, but like the chords that are going out can be like chords of light, right? So like it's that intentional, like especially if you have a ritual practice, like what is your auric field kind of like vibrating and doing? Um, and I think some chords can get activated, right? Like a trigger happens and it's sort of like your energy field informing you of like healing that needs to take place. Usually with chords, there's like deeper other work that needs to be done. I think if you just snip a chord, it's going to get reattached
Hmm.
to another person if not the same person or another situation. If you just go in and cut a cord to like an ex-lover, but you don't do any other deeper work on that, you're just going to attract that same dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was also thinking like there are plenty of times when I go to cut a cord for myself for a client and there's different people on that same cord. Like,
Mm,
there's like the current person and you're like, "Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense." And you're like, "But that's not the root of that. Like this is something
right,
longer. You know, you've been doing this over and over again and a lot of people are on the same energetic cord that they've like attached to." Um,
right.
so it's like these little branches on this same, I think I saw that with like the barbed wire, where,
Mm,
each little barb was a different person and it was really digging in. It was like, you
mhm,
know, this belief system is just going to be here because you've got all of these people feeding this energy back.
right.
So, you definitely do the work. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I get like wanting to just cut a cord and make yourself feel better, right? Because you can
Mhm,
absolutely just say, today I'm cutting this cord. I'm going to feel better. And you will for a little while, but it'll come back most likely.
yeah. I
It's,
think if you're doing ritual work on your own and you don't like have a deeper like you haven't been trained to do like cord cutting like in a like in a shamanic sense, then yeah, like just kind of doing like a cleanse of your auric field and sort of saying that intention like I'm ready to release like what's not mine. I'm ready to release what's no longer serving me to the highest and greatest good. And just like recalling my own energy, that's a good hygiene practice to have. And maybe over time that will help to clear like deeper wounds. But I think too, it can really be helpful to work with like a practitioner so you can get to the root of what it is. Because if you think about like a cord, there is a root, right? So if you cut the stem, the root is still there, it's going to grow. So getting to the root can look like finding that belief system or the core wound of like what really happened. Was it in this lifetime? Was it, in a previous? Is it an ancestral wound that you inherited? You know? And not to get too deep, but like there's usually like a contract, like some type of energetic contract that's been in place there. So there's a lot of steps that we actually do teach in our medicine wheel training that's coming up
Ew.
soon. It's a practitioner training, so you can learn all these steps. Uh,
Registration is now open.
yes, registration is open. And and this is just our way of doing it. This is how we've been trained. This is, it's not the one way. I have heard like some practitioner, like I think I haven't heard a lot of controversy over cords, but I've heard like don't cut cords. I've heard like healers say don't cut cords. So, and I'm like, okay, so then in that way, are you dissolving them? Like, how do you clear them? And I think that's another technique is like dissolving versus cutting, because I think cutting feels harsh.
And I get that. And there are definitely times when when you need to dissolve it versus
Right.
cutting it. But if you've got a toxic cord,
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to lop its head off. And that feels harsh, I know. But, once you've figured it out, you know why it's there, you've done the work and it's
Hmm.
ready to be cut,
Release. Yeah.
you know, sometimes you just have to lop it off
Right.
and send that toxic energy back where it belongs,
Hmm.
and fill your own hole back up with good positive energy. There are certainly times when it's a lot more gentle than that, when a cord is
Hmm.
ready to go and you can just send it on its way, or it's a gentle versus a need a hatchet.
Right.
I mean, I've had cords on clients that were like this thick, like that
Mhm.
takes a lot. You can't just dissolve that.
Yeah.
um, and I'm sure, well, I'm going to speak for myself and not you, because even though we work together and I know a lot about your practice, um, my feeling most of the time, not all the time, because it's definitely situational, but most of the time when a cord presents during a client session, it's ready to go.
Hmm.
Um, again, most of the time. Sometimes it just wants to be acknowledged, and that's sufficient. If it's not super toxic, it's just part of the belief system,
Hmm.
then okay. And it's always up to the client, right?
It's always up to them.
You,
Yeah.
every single time I get a cord, it's not something, if somebody is cutting your cords without talking to you first, change practitioners.
Hmm.
Um, I don't care who you go to, but you do not want somebody cutting your cord and then telling you they did it.
Hmm.
That to me is inappropriate. Cord cutting is personal. And because there's also been times with both me on the table and clients on the table where I'm like, okay, there's this cord. This is what it's to. Are you ready to release it? And the answer is no,
Hmm.
that there's more work they want to do around it before releasing it. And that is absolutely the client prerogative.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, most of the time it's saying it's ready to go because it's presenting to the practitioner.
Hmm.
Um, and I say that from my eyes, right? Because I don't see everybody's cords all the time. I know practitioners that do, right? That if that's your skill and you see all the cords physically all the time when you're walking around, um,
That's a
that's going to be,
lot to
it's a lot.
that'd be
But
very
there are people,
overstimulating.
who have that talent, and okay, well, that's great. Okay, good for you. I love that. But that means that when they see a chord, they're seeing all the chords, right? Not just the one that's presenting. For me personally, it's usually related to the issue. It wants to be cut at the time. But again, that's a practitioner experience kind of situation.
Yeah, and I think if there's fear or, the like let's say you can see that this chord is to like a dynamic with somebody's mom and they don't really understand the energetics of chords and it just brings up fear. It's like why, I've had that before where I'm like, well, I don't want to be disconnected to my mom. And I did try to explain, like, it's not you cutting it off with your mom and that's it, right?
Right.
It's that you're creating space for like a healthier possible relationship with her. But if people are not ready, then they're not ready,
Oh, absolutely.
and you can't like make them hurry up, So,
Right. And that's not my job. Like,
exactly,
and it's
exactly.
funny that you brought up the cord to mom, and I guess I brought it up too. I remember cutting my cord to my mom the first time, because it was an umbilical wound, and I was terrified until she explained it to me, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. Like, you're not cutting off me and my mom, you're just taking this negative part of this relationship away. And I got to tell you, it made a difference in the relationship with my mother,
Yeah.
like significantly. Um, like, yeah,
Yeah.
significantly cutting that cord made a big difference. So,
So, should we talk about like what are signs that something
oh,
feels
sure,
like an unhealthy cord?
sure. You
Okay.
brought it up. You get to talk.
Okay, I'll start. I'm not gonna start with an example where I feel like it's actually unhealthy, but this is actually an example of my personal experience. So, for example, I used to live in Thailand for 3 years and I was teaching English there, and I lived in this little tiny apartment over a computer shop. So I don't dream about it as frequently, but every so often I would be back in that apartment. I would be having an experience like with my ex-boyfriend that I lived there with. I would be seeing the landlord, the lady that worked at the computer shop. And I would have this whole experience of being there. And I'm like, yes, that can be like an aspect, like a soul part potentially that's like, hey, I'm still here. But I think that was more like my energetic connection to that particular space, that time and space, right? So, like with those people. And I actually don't have it as frequently anymore, but every so often I float back to that little apartment and I have a whole dream. And I think that is a connection to a space, like a good example of that. And I think as you travel or as you live in different places, like wherever you grew up, that you have like probably strong cords there, depending on how long you've lived there. Like if you lived there your whole life, there may be pretty strong cords to that place. And and then I think depending on how we related to that place and what happened there and experiences we happened with the people there will determine like the health of that cord. So like none of the dreams that I have are like really negative or bad. So I don't think of that as like an unhealthy, connection. But now over time, because it's been, a pretty almost 9 years since I lived there, um, it's not as strong. You know what I mean? I haven't been back. I don't communicate with those people that often. So it's kind of just like fading on its own, if that makes sense. And that will happen with like friendships that you lose touch with, and stuff like that.
And yet, talking
And
about
yet there's a
friendships that you lose,
caveat.
there is, because no, friendships that you lose touch with, um, if there's trauma around that, right? If it was
Mhm.
a bad parting, then that could become a toxic type of energy exchange if it's not removed, because you're still feeding this belief system around whatever happened potentially. I know that
Yes.
happened with me, where I've had some relationships go bad, and that happens, so we're human beings. But the negative belief around it fed this energetic cord to this person for a very long time until it was removed, and then it again,
Hmm.
removing cords does make a difference,
Yes.
in how you perceive the world, how you perceive yourself, how you feel physically. um,
Hmm.
there's
And what you're projecting outwards, because I
oh,
know,
definitely.
like, I had, a cord from like a friend that's like when I was 4 years old. That is, I've worked on this relationship and this dynamic a lot, but for some reason, that particular relationship has like informed so much. Maybe because I was so young, I don't know, but like it's just left this imprint that I keep coming back to, and I keep visiting different deeper layers to it. I've definitely cut cords with that person many times, and I don't feel connected to them necessarily as far as like the experience, the traumatizing experience, um, which then could lead into a whole other topic, which we could do another time, which is about like soul retrieval. Um, but it's so interesting. So, can you think of any other examples? Like, I think like if you're having a lot of like psychic dialogue with somebody and you're
Yeah.
not in the same space as them, or let's say you have a conversation with that person and then that energy is just like in your field and you're just like, hey, back up. Um, I think if you're sensitive to stuff like that, then you maybe know what I'm talking about. And you've never had that experience, then you might not. But um yeah, I feel like there's when you're having like mental psychic conversations, either, like telepathically or in the dream space over and over again, and somebody's like trying to get a message to you, but you're trying to set a boundary, that can be a toxic cord.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Are you okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was listening.
Um,
I was trying to think of of another scenario, but I can't think of something that I want to share at the moment.
okay. I
Because
think, yeah, go
cords are
ahead.
personal, right?
Words are
So
very personal.
yeah,
Yeah. And yeah. And the thing about like, why we have those cords in the first place is because there is some type of like healing or wounding or affinity with that experience or that person that creates that cord. Otherwise, it wouldn't like, get its claws into us. Yeah. So I think, I don't know if I want to go down this rabbit hole, but I think because I've been thinking a lot about like, do I want to go down this rabbit hole? I feel like it's interesting to think about chords in the form of like addictions too, because
yeah,
I feel like
definitely.
those are very cyclical. And so you sort of like somebody tries to cut the cord with that substance or that behavior or whatever. And then it's like if it just keeps coming back in a loop, there is like a cord to that thing. And then on a deeper level, there's a cord to something else, like a
Or there's a bunch of chords and a contract, right?
right.
Or so without knowing the contract and dealing with the contract, you're again opening yourself up to reconnecting with another source around that same moon pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
Um,
that was a little deep.
I know. I'm like, I wonder if we need to like put a
The whole separate
yeah,
podcast.
maybe it can inform our next chat. But if you guys are interested in learning more about energetic cords, learning more about shamanism, energy work, and just all the things, please check out our show notes because depending on when you're watching this, Tina and I are going to be hosting our medicine wheel. It's a year-long shamanic apprenticeship. This year it's starting October 2026, but we'll probably be doing it like once a year. So get on our newsletter list. And we also host workshops and things of that nature. So if you want to get to know us, and you just want to commit to maybe like something that's not as long, we run workshops frequently as well, every couple of months. So
And we both do one-on-one personal sessions and
yes.
coaching and all kinds of other things. So check out our web pages,
Yeah, if you need
Facebook
help with those
pages.
energetic cords, reach out to Tina and I. We're happy
Or
to help with
honestly, any
that.
other practitioner that you completely trust.
Yes, but we're awesome
Perfect.
too. All right, friends, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Take
Take
care.
care, everyone.